The Air India's AI-171 flight crash was one of the worst aviation disasters in Indian history. The first preliminary report of the probe in the crash is out, and our next report gets you all the details.
At 1:13 p.m. IST, the aircraft requested pushback and startup. 13 seconds later, air traffic control approved the pushback. When ATC asked, the crew confirmed that they needed the full length of the runway 23. At 1:25 p.m. IST, the aircraft requested and received taxi clearance. Around 1:32 p.m. IST, control of the flight was transferred to the tower. At 1:33 p.m. IST, the aircraft was instructed to line up on runway 23. At 1:37 p.m. IST, the aircraft was cleared for takeoff. 3 seconds later, the plane began its takeoff roll. At 1:38 p.m. IST, the aircraft crossed V1 speed, which was the takeoff decision speed. Now the plane reached 153 knots and then reached VR rotation speed of 155 knots. Plane's liftoff was then confirmed as sensors switched from ground to air mode. At 1:38 and 42 seconds, the aircraft achieved 180 knots, which is its maximum recorded airspeed. The Boeing aircraft appeared to be moving as procedure, as per the preliminary report, with no anomalies reported in communication or aircraft behavior. And then suddenly, both engines began to shut down. Fuel cutoff switches for both engines transitioned from run to cutoff. Just 1 second apart. Now, this immediately cut fuel supply to both the engines, causing them to lose power. The engines began losing thrust immediately. At 1:39 and 5 seconds IST, the pilot issued a distress call, Mayday. Now, what happened in the cockpit? The flight was being operated with First Officer Clive Kundar as the pilot flying and Captain Sumit Sabharwal as the pilot monitoring. This is a standard agreement where the more junior pilot flies when the senior captain monitors and manages the flight. Now, according to the AAIB, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, "Why did you cut off?" The other pilot responded that, "I did not do so." The report doesn't specify which pilot made which statement. Now, what are the key findings of the preliminary report? Well, pilots had made the attempt to save the aircraft within 10 to 14 seconds of the fuel cutoff. They moved both fuel switches back to the run position. Both engines began automatic restart sequence, but the recovery was ultimately impossible due to insufficient time and altitude. Now, the aircraft was only about 625 feet above the ground when the engines failed. It's important to note that engine restart procedure requires significantly more time than the 29 seconds which were available before impact. The other key findings include that the flap setting was correct and the landing gear was down. There was no report of bird activity or weather concerns. Also, the aircraft weight was within normal limits. It also said that the pilots were experienced enough, medically fit and well rested. Now, what happens next? The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has stressed the information in preliminary report is subject to change. Well, the investigation continues with several key areas of focus while initial analysis has been completed. Investigators are conducting detailed examination of approximately 49 hours of flight data and 2 hours of voice recordings to uncover additional clues. Now, detailed analysis of limited fuel samples recovered from the aircraft, mechanical examination of fuel control switches and related components to determine if they malfunctioned. A final report, which will attempt to determine the probable cause and make safety recommendations, is expected to take months or potentially years to complete.
We also earlier spoke to Captain Ehsan Khalid, a veteran IF pilot, an ex-airline captain, instructor and examiner. He shared with us his insights on the preliminary report. Listen in.
Okay, the preliminary AIB report is with the purpose that, we know somewhat what has happened, and the aircraft can continue to fly without any question of safety. As you know, the report which was supposed to come out yesterday night has come out today, and back-to-back FAA has also now taken out a advisory and said that Boeing 787 aircraft is cleared to fly, and it has given to all the international airlines about 174 Boeing 787 at America and balance about 1,000 aircraft which are flying worldwide are now cleared to fly without any safety issues. That is the purpose of a preliminary report, and that has been given. And that means there was no safety concern. There is no safety concern prima facie that appears. At a later stage, if it is found out, it will be a different issue.